What's up, my financially intentional people? I'm thrilled to have Kadeem Leslie join us today to explore his unique approach to financial freedom, financial independence, just to learn more about him. And I'm fascinated by him, and I'm sure you will be too. So, welcome to the podcast, Kadeem. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Nice to be here. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I'm glad you were able to join us all the way from Buenos Aires. And let's just dive into just your background, like where you're from, and then what made you go down this path of exploring financial freedom.
So it's actually a very interesting path. I was born and raised in Jamaica. That's where I'm from. And then my childhood, between my teenage years and my younger years were split into two very different worlds. So you can think of before I was maybe 12 years old, I was a typical spoiled rich kid. I went to private school. And then my mom got cancer and she passed. And then we became a single parent household. And from 12 until the rest of my teenage years, and that was rough, to say the truth. And growing up in a single parent household for the years where you should be going to college, where you should be striving in towards becoming an owl for the world, that's where I found myself needing money the most. I didn't have it because there was just being wiped out by all of those medical bills. It was terrible. And from as young as 15 years old, I decided that financial freedom was my goal. And I don't know many 50-year-olds who have that goal, but that should just give you an idea of just how pressing it was for me. I decided at 15 that I would retire before I was 30. And that's what I focused on. I went to college. I knew that there were opportunities at college, not to get a job, but to find people who would teach me about how financial freedom worked, about how the markets worked, about how the economy worked. And that was really my approach. So that's where it all began. Through real pain, it has resulted, and I did it. I guess that's more of what we can get into.
Yeah, I like that. But at 15 years old, what did financial freedom represent to you?
That's what it meant. It didn't mean like a port or traveling to Buenos Aires. None of that.
Right.
I really like Skittles. And I wanted to be able to buy a Skittle bag every single day.
And the reason why I asked you that is because I'm sure that has evolved over time. It's definitely evolved for me, what that meant. And so I'm just like, dang, like at 15 years old, what could you have been thinking? And that's just how everybody's path goes. Like you set off on a quest to achieve one thing and then learn more and grow. And then you're actually on the path to achieve something that you never even thought possible.
Right.
So yeah, that's why I asked you that. And that was perfect. Like it was all about a bag of Skittles initially.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know what I'm saying? It was, if you could buy a bag of Skittles, you are financially free. But that's still though, because there's levels, right?
You know what's actually very funny? This has nothing to do with money, but here in Buenos Aires, they actually don't have Skittles.
But I'm not surprised. I'm sure like the focus is more on like chocolates and more of the spicy.
Yeah. They do have other candy.
Yeah.
Just not Skittles. Oh.
I'm sure that is very frustrating for you.
I did all of this just to end up without Skittles.
All of that, and you can't even buy Skittles. That is crazy.
My goodness.
I love it. I love it. But how did you even end up in Buenos Aires? And I know that you traveled throughout the world, but I want to know, like, how did your path take you there?
The first decision that I made to start traveling was actually in my college library. I was sitting in my college library and I asked the question, hey, I'm thinking of starting to travel. Where would you guys go? And people listed up, I would go to Miami, I would go to California. I heard Myrtle Beach is nice. I've always wanted to go to New Orleans. And I said, those two sound pretty interesting. So then those were actually the first two places that I went to travel solo. It was New Orleans first. It was the week after Essence Festival.
Wow.
So not too crazy, but people were still there. And then I went to Myrtle Beach and I was in Myrtle Beach, the only Black person at that time. So it was great. That was the first time that I ever walked into a store that had a wall for Confederate items.
Very.
It's really intense, really intense. But that was my first experience with traveling. And then from there, I really fell in love with traveling.
But did you go to college in the States or in Jamaica?
So that was in the States.
Okay. Cool.
Right. So I was in the States. I did my bachelor's and I also got my master's. I decided not to do my PhD in the States. I want to go to Europe one day to do that. Just because I've traveled enough of the US and I really wanted something different. In the meantime, I decided to travel more through this side of the hemisphere. And so the first place was Panama. I decided not to go through Mexico and come down. I went to Panama first. So then from Panama, going down, I went from Panama to Colombia, coming right down until I fell in love with this beautiful city and I just couldn't leave.
Oh, wow. How long have you been there?
So I got to Argentina the first time in January, but then I left Buenos Aires to go down to Ushuaia, which is the bottom of the world. For anyone that loves cars, and you're in the Bay Area, right? So the Pacific Highway in the Bay Area ends in the bottom of Argentina, in Ushuaia.
Oh, that is fun facts. And I love driving down Highway 1. That's one of my things that I do on the weekends. So that is an amazing fact. I love that. That's so dope.
That Malibu stretch, it's beautiful. And the sunset, right? The sunset is beautiful. And so being able to do that and go to the end of that highway, that was pretty cool. And then I think people underestimate just how beautiful Argentina is because it's really big. And I think when people think of South America, they think of Brazil. But Brazil, the climate, I'm not going to say it's not diverse because it is very diverse, it's very big. But in terms of not climate, but the geography of the land, I think personally that Argentina just has more to offer because Argentina has glaciers. Argentina has a desert, right? Argentina does have rainforests, waterfalls. Of course, it doesn't have the Amazon jungle, but it has everything just short of that. And of course, the Iguazu Falls is also bordering Paraguay, Brazil, and Argentina right there. I think it's just a beautiful country.
That is so cool. I'm a big fan of geodiversity. Even just in the Bay Area, we have so much. We have close to us, we have the mountains, Tahoe, we have the oceans, we have where I live, it's dry as hell. We have the deserts, but just to be able to go like in a couple hours time span to different geographies and explore different areas is like why it's so beautiful here. Why people pay so much to live here too. But anyway, I love that. But I want to talk more about your path to like financial freedom from knowing that at 15 years old, you wanted to just buy some Skittles to where you are now, where you're basically retired early, exploring the world, living on your own terms. How did you get to that point? Take us on that path.
Okay, sure. I think one of the first things that I was able to do was meet really interesting people who gave me a different way of life, right? So one of my first mentors was actually how I came to make the decision to go for financial freedom. And ironically, my path up until that point was to try to be the best cellist that I could be. I'm a cello player. At one point, I was very big, but then I decided to go a different path because, of course, this is a question that every musician has, but it became real for some reason when this person asked it to me. And the question was, what happens if something happens to your fingers? Right? And we know as people that push sports or as NFL, NBA, we know people personally who they were on target to go to the top of the top and then they got injured and nothing else mattered. And it's the same thing with music. If you can avoid being injured, one of the greatest players in the world, Messi, if he had been injured badly, we would never have heard of him. And just like that can happen. And that, I think just perhaps that person asking me really scared me at 15, even though I knew. And so then that was the start of it. Now, getting to college, I had to start over because, of course, I was a cellist, but then when you move, no one knows who you are when you go to college. So then now you have no income.
Did you get like a cello scholarship to go to college, like a music scholarship?
Absolutely. Full
Okay,
scholarship.
okay.
I had a full scholarship because I played the cello. I worked very hard for that. I must have applied to maybe 20 different schools. 10 came back accepted, 2 came back full ride. And so I chose
Nice.
the one that I thought I could do really well in. And so
Nice.
I went to that school, which is Seton Hall, and one of the best decisions of my life.
Nice.
And once I got to that school, I realized I needed money. So yeah, it was a full scholarship, but they don't cover food. They don't cover transport. They don't cover clothes or winter boots or any of that, because just taking on that typical hustle mentality that Caribbean people have. We come in, we do everything that we can. Painting houses, this dog, I'll do that for you. It's no problem. Just I need money. So I'll do it. And then eventually I was like, I can start a company. And instead of me doing the work, I can pay other people to manage properties, and it could be my company. So then while these people were managing the property, I would just take maybe 10, 15, or 20% off of the bottom line, and I would just keep the rest. And then if I could do that with one place, and it started with one room, which was the room I was originally in, then if I could do that with one place, then perhaps I could scale that to more and more properties. And that was my first, I think, pretty big company. I had started other companies before that, but we don't need to talk about this.
Hey, it's about failing forward. But you talked about a mentor that helped you along the way. What did that mentor expose you to?
Books. So one of the first books, and that's perhaps why I became an author. I'm not promoting, just first one was Think and Grow Rich. The second was Rich Dad Poor Dad. And the third was How to Win Friends and Influence People. The reason why those were life-changing for me is that I liked reading, but I had never read books that were about the topic of money. And most people up until that point of my life had used money just bills. I'd never heard of the concept of buying real estate or even buying a business or starting and growing a business. That was not terms that were discussed around me. For the most part, people were used to say, oh, I have enough for a light bill or maybe one vacation a year. That's about what was exposed to me at the time. Never had I heard that perhaps what some people make in a year, you could make in 1 month or 1 week or 1 day, right? So after discovering that was possible, then the rest is history. I was like, I have to figure that out because once I figure this out, then I'll never have to worry about food again. And that was the goal at the time. And then I had just started college. So I got the books, then went to college, then broke in college. After being broke in college, I told you I started the property management company, started with one room, went on to multiple rooms, and then went on to multiple properties. And then what we actually ended up doing was scaling to multiple states and then multiple countries, which is actually really cool. And most of it was digital. Of course, platforms like Airbnb, VRBO, TripAdvisor, Booking.com. I think actually Booking.com is changed now. I no longer use Booking.com, but we even used Craigslist before. Just finding ways to fill people's properties has been our specialty. And that was my first big company that brought me to 6 figures. And then since then, what has actually been really cool is finding new ways to take that money, which is what you hear about people having multiple income streams. It's actually building the first one up really well, and then using that overflow to fill up the other cups. It's been really cool investing into different income, right? It's been really cool investing not only in a business, but into real estate directly. And really cool investing into other assets. One of my favorites, I think, is vending machines. And no one talks about vending machines, but they're really cool. And what's interesting about vending machines is that most people, and this is really cool. Now, in terms of cash flow, vending machines are actually way more than most properties, but not in value. So here's what I mean. With a vending machine, you can buy a vending machine for maybe $3,000. Yeah? Okay, cool. Cheapest vending machine, fine. But you can buy a vending machine for $3,000, a good one, new one. Okay, cool. If that vending machine is paying you $500 per month, one vending machine, now that's not a lot of money, but in 1 year, you'd have recouped everything that you spent on that vending machine. There is no property that gives you that. But the opposite is when you buy, let's say, a $500,000 house, right? And you have to sink $20,000 into that. You get the same $500 in cash flow, spending 5 times as much. That's a really big difference. So then if cash flow is the goal, there are other assets that you can use, which is what I like to talk about, to get you to basically having all of your expenses covered, like your living expenses, like your transportation, like your food, so that you can travel and invest and will live a fantastic life without having millions of dollars in the bank from the start. I think that's what's important.
I love that. So let me just do a recap. So you're in school, you're struggling to make it, like realizing that, hey, you need money to live. And so you start this company in college that has now grown to make you a lot of money. So while you were starting this company, what were you doing in college? Like you were still a cellist, you were still like a full-time student. Were you just forget college? I'm bubbling on my own. Explain to me what was going on there.
So it's interesting. I think most entrepreneurs would go the route of just through school, right? And I am a bit of both. I think school is highly overvalued, highly overpriced. And I think most people do not belong in college. I would say that on the books, off the books, no problem for me. But I will still tell you that there is a value in college, especially in the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, math, and also healthcare. Those people need to go to college. If you want to be a lawyer, there's no way. You have to go to college. Right? Yeah. Of course, some people have been caught without the license and they've been practicing law. Let's not be one of those people. So there's still use for college, but there are also people who go to college to try to figure out what they want to do. And if it's strictly from a financial point of view, there are cheaper ways for you to figure out what you want to do. And even if you do know what you want to do, there is a financial aspect of college that we don't talk to 18 and 17 and 16-year-olds about, which is that the majority of colleges and the majority of majors do not have a positive ROI. That's a problem. That is a major problem.
Yeah.
And so I have no problem going to study something that you're passionate about. But if you're going to go to school to study English, and then when you graduate, you're not trying to be an author, right? You're not trying to be a journalist. The only thing that you can think of with an English degree in your mind is to go back and teach English. That's a problem. Unless, of course, that's what you wanted to do. But then again, there are cheaper ways to do that rather than going $60,000, $70,000 a day. You can do that for $10,000. You can do that for $5,000. And so then that's what I think. So what was my approach to college? I will tell you, I've always been a fan of keeping really busy. I like keeping busy because I think some of the busiest people in the world are still the most productive. And I think they have to be productive because they are busy. And those are the people who value time differently. And so in college, I will tell you what I was doing. In the same time frame I started that company, I was actually doing another company as well, which is an entertainment company. Remember, I didn't go to college to get a job. So right off the bat, I was doing started an entertainment company with a friend. Entertainment. We just started playing parties. That was the first thing. But we eventually got to weddings, but it was just parties.
Wow.
It was just parties. So we were doing parties. And I was in orchestra. I was in a chamber orchestra. I was in a jazz band. I was in student government. I was in a club called Black Male Standard, which is a really cool club at the time. And I'm sure I'm missing. And I was in the army, right? So I was heading to be in the army. So then every day I had to wake up at 6 o'clock to go in the cool. And we were wearing nothing but shorts. For some reason, not for some reason. Obviously, it makes sense. You have to get used to pushing your body beyond the limit. But I was very cold. And perhaps now that's the reason why cold doesn't bother me as much. But I was also in the army, getting up at 6 o'clock, and then student government meetings were at 8 p.m. So I was up at 6, not getting to sleep until 10 p.m. So then I basically had no friends for the first 2 years of my college. And which is very real.
And you were taking a full load
of 18
college courses. Wow. Okay.
No time for anything else. Was focusing on. But then you have to remember that at the time, I knew that this was my one shot. Because I was coming from the context of a 15-year-old kid who sometimes at the counter did not have enough coins to afford the one meal that he would eat for that day. And all of the parties and all of the girls that I could have dated, or all of the other things that could have happened, or all of the trips my friends were doing, none of that compared to the pain I had to relieve. And so it was just night and day. And that incredible focus, I think, was a gift, because then fast forward at the end of the 4 years, where most of my classmates were looking for opportunities, well, I was
had created all your own opportunities.
Yes, and I was very thankful for that.
Yes. Yeah. So where had you grown your company to by the time you graduated from college?
So by the time I graduated, so in terms of my personal income, it was in the six figures. That was by the time I graduated. By the time I graduated my bachelor's, and that was really cool. And by the time my first book came out. So I still had 2 more years of master's, which is absolutely really cool. Up until that point, like, so backtrack. So there's a bit of context here. Up until that point, I had not been in any of the southern region of America. And for real estate, that's where all the money. So then, the same year I was about to graduate, we expanded into Georgia for the first time. And Georgia has been fantastic all the years. And so in that time, my business tripled in the 2 years doing my master's program. And that was a fantastic opportunity.
You still went and pursued a master's degree, even though you were very successful in your own business. You finished your master's?
I have finished my master's, yes.
Nice. It's just funny because you're talking about the value of school and overrated, but
so
you did it, but you were successful in your own right. So
okay, so then let me explain.
I think it's a beautiful contradiction, but I love it. I'm here for it.
Let me explain. Me, the reason why I want to get my doctorate, and I hope this doesn't get to the wrong person, but the reason why I want to get my doctorate is I think when a person with a doctorate tells you that you don't need to go to college, it sounds different. I think it sounds different.
No, that's me with my double master's degrees being like, please don't go to school. It is not. You do not need to go to school. I'm always preaching that. And people are like, shut up. Right. You live in school. Yeah.
That's what I personally
think.
Because I really want to double this down with people is that nothing that earns me money today was learned in school. Nothing. And if your goal is to make money, I think once you graduate high school, in today's world, you have nearly almost enough to make a lot of money. Just because 20 years ago, we did not have the internet. That's the only reason.
But what is your goal for going to school, though? Like you're saying, like you don't need it to earn income. So it's not about making more money, what is the goal for you to pursue higher education, even your doctorate?
It was exactly what I just said, which was because it sounds different.
So you just gonna go through it just so you could tell people don't go to
exactly.
School. Just to prove a point.
Exactly.
Just to prove a point. You're
Remember,
like, okay, I don't need to do, you don't have to get all these degrees to make all this money. And just to prove it, I got all these degrees and none of this stuff has earned me all of the money and all of the success. You are hilarious.
No, that's precisely the point, because that was the premise of the first book, which is that I'm going to teach you how to get straight A's. That was the first book. I'm making straight A's.
That's the first book you wrote?
Right. So it's called For Students, and the subtitle is How I Still Get Straight A's While Running a Six-Figure Business. And the reason why I wrote it that way is because I can show you how I'm still getting, and I was a straight A student, So how can you still get straight A's and still have all this time? Because what it really should be is that school should be taking the least amount of time possible. And for entrepreneurs, we are systems oriented. So that I can teach you the system for straight A's, and then you can manage that system and just replicate it. Oh, school becomes easy. No, you don't need to worry about that. You can focus on your business. And I think that's what many entrepreneurs get into, is that they don't know the system of learning. I'm saying that's what I did. I broke it down into a system, and if you did this, you get this.
That is so funny. That's hilarious, because actually recently I've been binging like how to study just because I just want to be more efficient. I love learning. I just don't like higher
Got
education
you.
systems, but I love to learn. But so right now I'm getting another certification. So I've been binging on better study skills because I feel like I lack that. So I
Right.
struggled a lot in school. I have ADHD too. And I'm just like, you know what? I have to have a really good system for studying because I actually want to retain this
Right.
information. And I know that a lot of the stuff that I have learned, I haven't retained. So I think that's very interesting. I'm going to check that book out. But I think that's
Right.
dope. And yeah, I get it. But I still think it is hilarious that you are getting a PhD just to be like, and you don't need to go to school.
Hopefully the wrong people that hear this.
You're so funny.
It's okay. I've said it multiple times. It's fine. I will stand on it. That's why I want to do it, because I think many young people have this false notion that once they graduate Harvard, then they'll be somebody. And it's just the opposite. It's actually the people who make Harvard, and they were already people before they got there.
Yeah. That is true. This is another aside. I was listening to something and they were just like, it's not really about Harvard making someone. It's like Harvard recruiting the people that'll be like, this is why you need to come to Harvard because we recruited that person, but that person was already something before they got to
Absolutely.
Harvard. Okay.
Just look at this. Just think about Barack Obama. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps he would not have been president, but you really think that he would have been working at McDonald's? No, he's Barack Obama.
Never.
He was going to be successful.
Yeah.
He would have been a senator. He still probably would have been the CEO of some major. He would have been Barack Obama. And that's something that you can't take away from people like that. And so that's just one example.
Okay, so let's bring it back to this financial freedom conversation because I want to understand, since then you've had this very profitable company and you've been able to spin that off into multiple investments in other companies like your vending machine. Currently, what are your streams of income and then how are you using that to live your life by design?
So it's actually funny. I don't think people realize, so I don't have kids. And so traveling solo, actually not as expensive as people think, right? Because I think most people don't realize that, but it's not possible for most people because of the way that they earn money. Most people earn enough, but the way that they earn money, which requires them to be in a physical location to be able to do that. Remote workers will tell you, if you can work 100% remotely, then that's amazing. No, I don't do that. But that's effectively the same thing. And of course, that's possible since COVID. A lot more remote workers are doing that. All streams of income. So we have real estate, we have the real estate business and we have real estate investments, two different things. But we have those investments and we have actually different machine businesses. So there's a vending machine business and there's a credit card machine business that was started recently. And I'm really fascinated about this because it's been my first experience with hiring people for sales from India or Pakistan or Bangladesh. Now, we all know that the big corporations use these people like religiously. But it's been my first time really exploring that as a full-time possibility of hiring a sales team from those regions. And so that's been, I think, growth for myself as an entrepreneur because it's not even close about how much you can pay someone in the US versus someone, in overseas, even the Philippines too. Here, even minimum wage being $7, $8, or even up to $15 in some places.
No, it's $20 here.
It's $20. Okay, great. So it's $20. I think it was $15 in Jersey, but $20 there. Okay, fine. So for $20, that's equivalent to what I would get for a part-time worker for a whole week. One.
That's crazy.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And so, but then what's interesting is that's more than what they make. So it's a win for everyone. So because of technology that allows us to do this, I get to pay them more. And because I pay them more, one person, which is how it was for us in the United States, one person being the breadwinner, that one salary could take care of everybody in the house. That's what's happening in India right now, which is that one person can earn from a company in the US and take care of their 4, 5 kids and their perhaps other relatives, which is amazing. I'm really happy I'm able to do that. And so then it's not even close in terms of value disparity. And then you also have book sales and dividend income.
Okay, cool. I love that. So I'm going to recap that. So you still do your property management company. you have your cash flow from your real estate, you have your vending machine companies, and you have your POS systems that you
Yes.
sell. And then your dividend income from investing, and then your books that you sell. Amazing. But your cost of living is so low.
Right.
As well. So you keep your income high and your expenses low.
Right.
So I just want people, like, I don't want to brush over that because that's super duper expensive, but it's super hard to do in the United States. Like you just gave the example of somebody living off of one income to feed a whole basically community, where that is non-existent in the United States. Basically, if you're not in a 2-income household, then you are broke. In the Bay Area, the poverty level is $120,000 for a family of 4.
Yes.
Not everybody makes 6 figures.
Right.
When I think people are like, $120,000, that's not a lot of money. But like only the top 10% of people in the US make $100,000. Right. And I want people to understand that, just so you can see like the difference in like how other countries are living and how we're living, right, and how important it is to make sure that you are doing things to ensure that you are building wealth. Right. How important that is, especially now, right, that they just survive. Yeah,
exactly. And what's interesting here is that Argentina is actually going through an economic crisis as well. So it's actually not the best for people who live in Argentina. But if you are from the US and you come to Argentina, it's amazing for you. And this works not just for Argentina, but and not just between the US and Argentina, but if you're from the US and you move to Colombia, it's the same. From US to moving to Mexico and moving to countries in Eastern Europe, it's the same, right? Countries in Asia as well, it's the same. You're moving from Europe to Eastern Europe, you move to Western Europe, Eastern Europe, same thing, same kind of idea. But what actually ends up happening is that once you realize just how little it actually takes, for example, okay, so I'll give an example. I was looking at real estate here, and I was looking at a 3-bedroom place with a car garage. It was wonderful location, upstairs and downstairs. That place was going for about $500 a month. It comes furnished, by the way. Now that's everything.
Is that an apartment or like a single
apartment? So a 3-bedroom apartment. Okay. Right, that's enough to raise a family. Comes fully furnished. That's electricity included. That's water included. Right, all the furniture, and it has the TV and stuff. I think you can see the TV right there. So $500, $600 a month, 3-bedroom, and so that's living, right? And then let's say you spend about that on food. Let's say it's $1,000, and then let's say you just spend $1,000 just because. And then let's say you have. So let's say it's $2,500. That's only 5 vending machines.
Yeah. Okay. Are you comfortable sharing your numbers?
Sure.
Like how much you spend on a month versus how much you bring in?
Sure. So my income fluctuates between 40 to 60 per month, and
$60,000.
$60,000. And I'm spending, so most of that goes back into just finding new things, finding new properties and whatever. But I'm spending less than $2,500.
That is crazy.
And that's really on a heavy month. That's on a heavy month.
That's crazy. That gap is insane.
It is.
So as far as like your businesses and how much revenue like you bring in, how much do you actually pull out of your business versus reinvesting it? And then how much like in taxes do you pay? Like how does that work as an expert?
So that's a good question. In terms of profit that is just mine, that's about half of that. So I keep half, and then the rest goes to other people, because other people get paid, other people around the US and the world. Taxes, then it would be the tax margins. I think I'm in the 22 or 25 something tax bracket, and so then I pay that. But the thing is, that's taxed as you call it sole proprietor, and so because it's taxed as a sole proprietor, for example, when I'm working from an office, this is a business call, all of that is a tax write-off. And so because I'm traveling and I'm always taking calls and I'm documenting what I'm doing, these are all tax write-offs. And so the advantage of not being a W-2 employee like my friends are, they're remote workers, is that they work and then they get taxed. I live first and then get taxed on what's left. But then another advantage of why I would encourage everybody to work in real estate, which is actually one of the best things about real estate, is that you can write off depreciation upfront. And so last year, I paid next to zero tax because of depreciation.
Wow. So it doesn't even have anything to do with you like being an expat and like being able to file like special exemptions because you don't live in the States for most of the year. I know a lot of people do that as expats. Like as long as you are out of the country
for 11 months.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Yeah, using those write-offs. You're not even looking at that because just in your business alone, you're able to write off.
So it would make sense to, and again, I think one of the advantages of getting into real estate is that there's not a benefit of taking that write-off for me, because the bigger benefit is, would I rather write off that, or would I write it off in depreciation and just get a new property, or get new properties every time taxes are due? I would rather do that, because then taxes aren't avoidable. And I want to make that clear for anybody. They're not avoidable. All depreciation is doing is putting it off. And what you can do with taxes is that you can put it off until you're dead.
So
you can't avoid taxes. Just that the law or tax code is like, maybe, let's say it's 5,000 pages, some number like that. And 30 pages are how to pay taxes. And then the rest of it is how to postpone tax. And that's what it is.
I love it. Meanwhile, I'm over here paying like 40%.
Yeah, California is crazy. California is absolutely crazy.
It's not just California, it's the federal, it's just everything.
Yes.
But I think that's cool. And I think that looking at an option as to where I can drastically decrease my cost of living by taking me and my family and living somewhere else, but being able to make income digitally or through my business is very attractive. I want you to share with people how like what you're doing is replicable, because I already hear the naysayers being like, I can't really do that. He started his company when he was in college and he just got lucky and got really successful. How are you sharing what you're doing in a way that other people can just follow your footprints?
That's exactly the question I'm trying to answer right now, of how replicable my life would be, because I don't think the path of starting a property management company is replicable. And I will say that, and I have said it before, I don't think that's replicable, because I started with one room, went to multiple rooms, then went to multiple houses. Many people don't have that option. Now, of course, I could teach someone how to get into property management. It's just that I think there are easier ways. And that's why I talk about machines so much, because the machine business is pretty straightforward. No, it's not easy, but it is straightforward. And because we know that we can use other people's money, you don't have to put your own money down. And I did the same thing with property management. You can use other people's money. You're just getting your 0% interest business credit cards, or getting a line of credit from the bank, or borrowing it from somebody that just asked them, hey, could I get $10,000? Use the $10,000.
Just like that.
But then, as we know, you can get that from business credit. And that's what I talk about too. Yeah. It's so interesting is that when people say, oh, that's impossible, I've literally, I remember that it's so funny. So, quick story. I was in the line with somebody. We're in a restaurant and I was talking to them about business credit. And I said, you have a business, but you don't have business credit. And I was telling them about American Express. That's one of my favorite banks to get. I told them about the Blue Business Plus card. And they said, if you are saying that you can get me 0% for 12 months, at least $5,000 right now, I believe. And I said, no problem, we'll do it in the line. No, I had never done anything like that before. That was a bit of pressure. I got him $6,000, 0% interest, between the time they took to go from the back of the line up to the cash register.
No.
It's doable.
But it's about, I love that.
It was because at that time I was so into credit and I was top of my mind. So almost everybody I met, I was talking to with business credit. And I was like, do you know what this is? It's amazing.
didn't know this was a thing. Like they'll just give you money,
Right,
zero interest.
right.
Like that.
And so then,
Yes,
the
yes.
formula is, okay, so then if we can acknowledge off the bat, if we can acknowledge that it's possible to go and get money from the bank, which is why everybody talks about getting your credit in order. But then even if your credit isn't in order, you can repair your credit. And then it is possible to go and get a few $1,000s from the bank. Let's say it's 6,000. Let's take 10,000, done that before. Let's say it's 15,000. Let's say it's 25,000, done all of those before. Let's say it's just enough to get one vending machine. Okay? Okay, cool. One vending machine, as we know, is $3,000. You take that $3,000, you go and put it in a location. Can be a vending machine, can be a card machine, can be an ATM. You put it in a location that can earn at least $500. Within 6 months, you have recouped all of the money that you invested into the vending machine, card machine, or ATM machine. You go do it again. Within 1 year, you have done that twice. That's an asset that's generating $1,000. Now, is that life-changing money? No. Can you retire? Probably not. Is it going to change your family? Probably not. But you now have $1,000 that you are not working for. That's $12,000 a year. So then, no, the 0% interest is up. You still have the asset, but guess what you do have now? You have income at $1,000. So then no, $1,000 a month, 6 months after that, you can buy a new one. 3 months after that, you can buy a new one. 3 months after that, you can buy a new one. By year 2, if you're following the plan, you have 4 to 6 machines. 4 to 6 machines, let's say it's 5 machines. 5 machines earning $500. That's $2,500. That's what I spend every month. Surprise. In 2 years, you can travel.
You replace your income.
It's that easy. And if you have a job right now, it's actually easier because then now you don't need to wait until you're breaking even. You don't need to wait until the credit card pays you back. You can go out and get 2 or 3 with your job that you have right now, and then you can speed up the process. It's not that difficult, but it does require a new way of thinking about money, and that part is difficult.
That is a very difficult part. That's the part that people struggle with.
Yes.
But the thing about, okay, so I know multiple people that have had vending machine companies, and I know like the major complaints for them is number one, finding a location, then servicing the machines and the maintenance of the machines. Those things become issues. How do you work around those issues? Because I know you have machines all over.
So the easiest way is 1, hire really good people and always buy new machines. Really that simple. If you buy new machines, they're going to last longer. And usually if something breaks, it's only one thing that's breaking and it can be solved because they are experts, right? No, I will tell you, it's much easier to hire people when you have a lot. So then the goal is to get to a lot. And then once you have a lot, then you can hire a lot more people. It's the same with card machines. The one I like about card machines is that unlike vending machines, card machines, they don't break. There's nothing to refill. And that's why I like card machines. What is actually interesting is that Bitcoin machines are actually new. I don't have any, but that's another opportunity. They're just more expensive.
So you have a system in place. You have people to manage your machines at volume. But where are your machines located then? They're just not like all over the place.
Atlanta.
Okay. So you're in Buenos Aires and you're managing this because you put together a team that comes in, stocks the vending machines.
Exactly.
They maintain it and they do everything. And then the money is it like a card system? So you just get that money?
Right. Exactly. It's the body is in my bank account. But what the key thing there, again, is the reinvesting. And that's the part I don't want people to miss. The only reason why that happened, because let's say, for example, I stopped at 4 machines and that was it. Right. Then it wouldn't be happening. And so then now, the trick is now you're using that money to buy real estate, and then you use real estate money to buy apartment buildings. I don't have an apartment building yet, but that's how people get bigger. And so then once you have the machines that you can outsource yourself and you can hire someone, okay, so let's say 5 machines, you have 2,500, but you need to pay someone $500 a month to restock. So then now you're back down to 2,000. To get back to 5, you just need to close maybe 1 or 2 more locations. So then go do that. And then once you have that, now you need one other person, which is where India comes in. One person that is on the phone, cold calling businesses, restaurants, nail salons, barbershops, strip clubs, elderly clear machine facilities, all of these places, calling day in, day out. And then once you find those locations, someone else will go put them in, and they just have 2 people running the entire operation pretty soon.
I love that. So you have your salespeople finding locations for your vending machines, also finding locations for your credit cards.
Exactly. You can use the same people for both.
Yeah.
Different scripts. Obviously, script writing is a different skill, but it's not hard to do that, especially because we have ChatGPT today.
GPT. I love it. I love it. And I really like the model. I really like how you're just like, look, this is replicable. It does not take a lot of capital to start. Even if you're not starting with business credit, like a lot of people have $10,000 sitting around that's not doing anything for them. And to be able to take that and to build something where you're reinvesting back into it so that in a matter of 2-3 years, you're able to build something that replaces your income. It's not just one thing. I love that you're saying like you take that money and then you reinvest it into your stocks. You reinvest it into properties, like, and you create this kind of like ecosystem of cash flow. And it's diversified in itself so that if something isn't going right in one month, you still have another source of income. So I love the example, and I love the practicality of it. And I love that it's so easily attained by practically anyone.
It is.
So I think you've done a great job of explaining how replicable it is and making it approachable for most people to understand. Because most people can't even wrap their head around, like when you said $20,000 to $40,000 a month in revenue, they're just like, what?
Right.
Like, how do you make that? But yeah, I think you've done an extremely good job in letting people know how to do that. And I know you have books about this. Do you have courses or anything? If people wanted to work with you, how do they get in contact with you?
My Instagram is I am Cade_, or you can just look up my name, Kadeem Leslie.
And I'll put it in the show notes. Yeah.
I'm not here to promote anything, so you can just feel free to reach out to me. It's a wonderful talking to you, Nasima. I'm sure we'll meet again in the future. We can chop it up some more about this.
For real.
Really, it's just about thinking in systems. I think just like how we were talking about the first book, just coming up with a system for studying that you can repeat. That's the same thing that I learned from McDonald's. Anywhere you go in the world, it's the same McDonald's. It's the same, if you are wondering, in Argentina, tastes the same.
They have different stuff. The McDonald's around the world has different things, but the systems don't change. They do.
But
I don't know.
A quarter pounder will taste the same. You see what I'm saying? So then once you have that quarter pounder system, it's just about replicating it, because you can't replicate a job, but you can replicate a unit. And once you have a unit that earns a certain amount, all it is, it's finding different ways to replicate that unit. And if that unit earns $1,000, $500, $200, $10,000, doesn't matter. All it is replicating that system until you reach the desired amount.
Yeah. I love this, Kadeem. And I love that it's not about promotion here. It's really about just showing people what's possible. It's about changing people's mindset around money, because once you start understanding what's possible and what's possible for you, and then surrounding yourself with the people that are doing those things, it really is the biggest difference. Besides like doing the actions, people are always like, what is the first thing that I can do to make sure that I do X, Y, and Z? It's really not about that. It's really about changing your circle of influence. It's really about understanding what's possible for you.
Absolutely.
And then once you're aware that's possible, you start being able to take the actions that are the lasting actions that are going to put to financial freedom. So I just really appreciate you being here, because you have just dropped so much knowledge. I could tell just like how smart you are, just like in the background.
No, just the glass.
You are so funny. You love to learn, but the things that you are doing is phenomenal. But it's not hard. These things are not hard, and these things are attainable. So I really appreciate you just coming and sharing and letting people know what's up. And then an aside, I got a question that is unrelated to anything. Do you speak Spanish? Like my Spanish, like my labor and delivery Spanish, like empuje, or you like are fluent?
No, I'm not fluent, but to survive, I have had to speak Spanish. I can order food. I can make friends. I'm surviving. But yeah, I started speaking Spanish just last year. I guess what I would sound like is like a 4-year-old. That's how I saw it.
I love it. I love it though. And the other reason why, first of all, I was just joking around, but I also like to let people know sometimes they're uncomfortable going places that they don't speak the native language. And I just tell people that is just an artificial barrier.
Yeah, definitely.
You can learn.
Definitely.
Plus, most of the places speak English. Plus, there's Google Translate. Get out and explore the world. Stop putting up all these barriers, and it's just another barrier to achieving the life that you really deserve, like that you might not even know is possible for you.
It's very safe,
yeah, I just
by the way.
Very safe. That's another thing. People are like, Argentina,
Buenos Aires?
Isn't that where they have the cartel?
It's safer than New York City.
I'm from West Oakland, okay? People was getting popped on the bus going to school, okay? Well, stop playing like you guys don't experience massive amounts of violence. Like the things that we experience here in the U.S. and people are always like cringing, like it's so unsafe in those countries. I'm like,
it's unsafe.
My kids have to go through exactly like the drills that my kids have to go through about active shooters in school is ridiculous. I just did a training for my hospital about active shooters that was terrifying. Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, and people are so afraid. And I know this is an aside. And if you guys want to stop listening, I understand. But I'm just saying, this is like crazy. Like the things that we tell ourselves about why we can't do certain things.
Incredible.
And how we view the rest of the world is insane. So I just encourage people to get out as much as possible, to change their circle of influence as much as possible, because there's so much out there and people are selling themselves short. Absolutely. It takes just a little bit of discomfort in order to change, just a tiny bit of discomfort in order to change your trajectory and your kids' trajectory. And again, Kadeem, I really appreciate you being here just to show people what's possible, because we all need to see it and we love to see it.
And thank you. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of your page. Just what you do, I love it. And
thank you so much, Kadeem. I appreciate you being on.
That was great.
I'm going to drop your handles and stuff in the show notes, and I hope people reach out. And we'll definitely stay connected because you got gems, and I know I can learn a lot from you.
Oh, likewise. I see what you're doing. Just having your own podcast, and now itself, and that's hard. So kudos to you, man.
Thank you. I'm glad you appreciate that, because every day I'll be like, I should just quit. I would be something long.
Please don't.
You don't understand the work that it goes into all of
No, it's a lot. It's a lot. And just a word of encouragement to you is look at Club Shisha, right? And then look at Alex Formosi, those two guys. And they were doing it for years. And then one interview or one season changed everything. And it's really the 5 years that it takes to get to that season. But then after you get to that season, oh my God.
Listen.
This is what I envision, but it's tough to get there. And
you know what? I don't envision any of that. I'm really just, if one person can take a lesson and apply it to their lives, I'll be happy. I don't want to be famous. I don't aspire to any of that. But it's hard.